On one hand, our outer expression in work, through whatever be the professional career path we take, is an expression, a reflection of our inner reality. This tendency to segregate the two creates quite a wedge in our development. Therefore, it is very important to see how the inner journey reflects in the outer manifestation of our professional work. And as we evolve, how does the outer work change? Our approach to work itself change as we evolve.
Namaste, everyone. It is my privilege to welcome you all to today's talk, which is titled Career by Chance, Choice, or Grace. Our speaker for today is Mr. Manoj Pavithran. He is an integral yoga practitioner, a coach, and director of the Purnam Centre for Integrality in Auroville. A designer by profession, he went after his design course for his spiritual calling in Auroville right after he finished his course. And then he dedicated more than 15 years to his sadhana, launched the Swadharma program, a transformational educational program based on the principles of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And it is his dream to have a whole community of karmayogi leaders. Manoj sir, it is my privilege to have you here and to host you here. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity. I would like to begin with the silent concentration for a minute. Often, even when we have a call for yoga, interested in yoga, develop that devotion and interest. Even then, for vast majority of people, their spiritual life goes in one track. The professional life goes on another track, without the two coming together. It's very common. On one hand, our outer expression in work, through whatever be the professional career path we take, is an expression, a reflection of our inner reality, this tendency to segregate the two creates quite a wedge in our development. Therefore, it is very important to see how the inner journey reflects in the outer manifestation of our professional work. And as we evolve, how does the outer work change? Our approach to work itself change as we evolve. And in this space, I have divided that journey into 3 stages. The career by chance, career by choice, career by grace. In all 3, the underlying key faculty is the will in action, the willpower. That translates into action in the world, work in the world. In our first stage, career by chance, our individual will has not yet emerged. The clear self-drive has not yet emerged. We are largely shaped by society. First of all, family, then the schooling system, then the university system, then the social system. That is shaping us, driving us, and the will comes from external pressure, and we are responding to the growing demands of life from outside. And that journey is more or less random, even when it is a conditioned channel through which one is walking the path. And that's largely an unconscious journey, habitual journey. There, it looks like we are making choice. But that choice is only in appearance. The greater force is the external pressure. For example, I did engineering. That was a social convention. When I look back, that was the general expectation, and that's what everyone else did. I followed. Even the choice of what to study is largely driven by social conditioning. And our education system is not focused on bringing out our true individuality, rather focused on manufacturing people to fit into certain roles in our industrial production, consumption, market economy. We are produced for the market. There is no question of who you are as an individual. And there is no training to look inward to know one's true potential, true calling. There is no such discussion throughout the educational journey. So we randomly progress through the socially conditioned pathways, common highways, and predominantly driven by the notion of end of the day work is to earn money. That's all. There is nothing more to it. Better the paycheck, better the job is considered. So that journey, as we go and proceed through random coincidences, some campus interviews, some chance encounters where we may not even be taking up works that are in alignment with what we have actually studied. And it's so common. You do graduation, post-graduation in one field, but you end up doing something else because that is what life has brought. And primarily, most people are seeking financial freedom, financial independence. And that's what you get during that stage where you have not even individualized to stand on your own. You're driven by external convention and system. And from there, as the journey deepens, at this point, our inner space, inner growth, where we have not really come in touch with the greater, deeper impulsion of the soul, nor have we reached a level of internal integration. It's more like floating in a stream, in a river. From that stage, we move on to the next stage where our individual will is beginning to form. Now, that formation again comes or emerges when there is some or other form of social pressure that is building on you, or an inner drive that is pushing you towards charting your own pathway. You may even discover in the process of that drifting stage that some or other work is fascinating. I'm enjoying this or that. You get a glimpse, you get a taste, and that fascinates. That's when even your true education begins, where we see that if I have to move in this path, then I have to acquire this or that skill, and I am willing to put that effort to develop those capacities so that I can move on those pathways that are more interesting, more fulfilling. So the will is now beginning to be exerted in a conscious manner. Often what people do is they begin to awaken and get fascinated by some or other line of work, and they quit their existing job, which is part of a larger organization and its dynamic wheel that was spinning. You quit perhaps in order to start something of your own. That's when you discover that your individual will has not been sufficiently formed. You were performing quite well in a context where there was systems in place that was driving you, and you are performing well because of the larger will of the organization and its drive. And when you step out to start something on your own, you hit upon the internal struggle of mastering your will to drive in a self-driven manner, in a chosen direction, to navigate in a chosen direction, even to join an organization that is more suitable for you, in alignment with your values. By the time you have become more conscious of what is really important for me, what is not important, what I am not willing to compromise. So that knowledge is there. Now you're beginning to make that effort to move forward. There the will is getting exercised. And you're encountering the need to now drive yourself from within, and the challenge involved in that. And that's a space where you encounter a great deal of internal resistances, fears, complexity that was otherwise hidden. In the first stage, we are undifferentiated part of the collective stream. In the second stage, you are making choice and you're differentiating yourself as an individual, but you're also encountering the internal fragmentation which was hidden. Various parts of your being that did not show up till that point is beginning to show their head. And you're discovering the internal conflicts which was not there before. Haunting doubts, fears, anxieties. And that's part of the journey of bringing the parts together, various parts of our being to be pulled and brought together so that all parts of your being are willing to obey you, so that you can chart your career path. Now, this phase can be long because we are getting shaped by life and confrontation with life and its challenges and battling through it. Battling the internal doubts, fears, because you need precise clarity to take action in the field and you have to respond fast. There, you're beginning to doubt your own choices. Now, how do you make that clear choice? Till that point, when you were part of any larger other organizations and floating with that larger will, group dynamism, there was no space for this kind of doubts to emerge. Directions were given, you were simply executing. Now, you are beginning to drive where your choices, nobody else is responsible, and you are responsible. And there are these related anxieties, confusions, uncertainties that will demand more and more to look deeper inward to see from where am I acting? What is my core? How do I know my truth? How do I know this choice is the right choice? It's a necessary phase, difficult phase, but that is where you get truly individualized. The intelligent will, the buddhi, is shaping up, able to bring parts together, create certain coherence, begin to drive you forward. And at this stage, you may still think in terms of, I want to do my dream job. There's an ideal profession and ideal work that I am meant to do. But soon in that journey, you will discover 90% of it is sweating it out, dealing with internal battles. And here is where our deeper Indic wisdom come into picture, the Swabhava and Swadharma notions. In our first stage of drifting, the floating stage, our Swabhava has not yet emerged. We have not individualized. Swabhava can emerge only when we begin to individualize, begin to take authentic step based on our own convictions. often battling against other people telling you other way around. Standing up for yourself. That is the individualization journey. It is in that individualization the Swabhava begins to reveal itself. What you are capable of doing, what can potentially flow through you, and your reference in turn shift more and more inward in that process. Initially, it is a choice of this is the particular domain of work I love to do. So far, I was doing something else. This is what I would really love to do. And then you get into that path, especially you become more and more independent in that journey. You will realize there is a lot more complexity to be dealt with. And that complexity, as I already mentioned, will reveal as an internal conflict and pulling up various parts of being otherwise resisting to come with you. It's a good journey, necessary phase. It builds you. It builds you, it builds your buddhi. Buddhi, when I say it's not just intelligence, it is also the intelligent will, the mental will. And it is also primarily a mental individualization. True individualized ego, healthy ego. Before that, you don't even have an individualized ego. You're still part of a collective ego, conforming and floating with the collective ego. Now you're individualizing and standing up for yourself and claiming your space, applying your will, navigating by choice. There is a true healthy ego forming and giving you your freedom of choice, true choice. But still from the foundation of the ego. But it is far more satisfying, even if it was not financially as rewarding as it was before when you were under safe cocoon of a larger ship. But you're building yourself. You become more and more confident in yourself, your choices. And you realize that it's your choice. No matter what is required on that path, you will do. Not just the professional dimension of things, everything else that is required for something to actually materialize. Now, that's a great muscle to build, great capacity to build, great stage of the formation of the ego. Sri Aurobindo says ego was the helper, then ego become the bar when you want to move on to the next stage. Career by grace. So we have moved from the career by chance, from that random floating, externally supported, unindividualized stage of the journey to an individualized stage of the journey where you have built the muscle. You have built the strong individuality and capacity to make decisions, stand up for yourself, having confidence in your own decisions. Wonderful. And ability to plan and execute. That's a great ability that you build at this stage. Planning, execution, knowing your capacities, and becoming realistic about yourself. So initially, when you leave the career by chance to career by choice, there is a great deal of romantic idealism about oneself. Then there is this period of churning where you are shaped. You become more realistic, more grounded, and you're getting built to be a true individual. Then life goes beyond planning, where the deeper awakening begins to show up. And that's where, once again, chance will come back. Life is communicating to you in so many different ways to take many risky choices without security, without guarantee card. Come this way. And something in you is fascinated and you can't resist it. And sometimes, even when you have the call knocking at your door, you still can't leave what you have already built with so much effort. Because you have formed, you have invested your energy, you have built yourself up. Now life is demanding you to drop and take a leap into the unknown. That is even more scary. And by the time you also notice there is something beyond your individual will that is interfering or nudging you to take steps, risky steps that you have not taken so far, and a fascination for things that are beyond, an increasing curiosity for the sake of that joy of adventure, a fascination for an adventure where you feel you are called. There is a deeper purpose to life. A purpose is calling. Till this point, even in the second stage, purpose can still be, of course, first is financial independence, stability, all that. When you go beyond that, you will look more in terms of what kind of impact that you can make in the society. Here, it is going beyond even the social impact. Into there is a call, a growing thirst deep within, which the intelligent will and the mind's explanation is not able to fulfill. There is a vacuum growing. You may be financially well off, successful in career, charted your own path, and yet there is a gap. It is still an act of will, an effort. So now you're beginning to be prepared for the next stage where you wanted to do things for the joy of doing, joy of giving yourself, embracing the unknown, and encountering the miracle of grace. You give yourself, you listen deeply, and you give yourself to that inner nudge. And magically, some or other doors are opening up. Things that you did not plan. You begin to notice a greater intelligence at work, a greater wisdom at work, And when you respond to that call from deeper depth or the miraculous nudge that come your way, there your mind and its intelligent will is beginning to surrender to a greater process of awakening, to a greater will beyond you that is a way of organizing your life and taking you forward on the path that cannot be planned. And the more you recognize it, the more you give yourself to it, the more you discover the joy of giving yourself unconditionally. There, when that nudge is there, whatsoever be the little thing you are asked to do, when you do it, it has a joy beyond our conventional way of doing things without expectations, with complete self-giving. And in that journey is where we discover the divine providence and the guidance, a growing intimacy with the divine guidance, divine presence. By the time, since you have already crossed the second stage, your Swabhava has emerged. You know, you have been shaped on the anvil of life. You have been shaped and you know these capacities have been already built. And things can be of value in various spaces and various contexts where you find the joy of just offering yourself. Self-offering, self-consecration. You know that this is something more than career choice. It's a consecration. You're offering yourself to a call, a service to something that you are yet to fully grasp, and yet it is becoming more and more intimate, closer. And the more we give ourselves, we see that new type of capacities are emerging spontaneously. What you thought you will never be able to do, suddenly you find you are able to do. New gifts are opening up as if something has just opened the door and you discovered, wow, I can do this. And you also find a growing network of connections that are more and more soul connections and not transactional. Living real connections. Connections that are untouched by the need for transaction, the need for trade, need for profit, need to assert yourself. Rather, you find great gratitude for being part of that growing connection with souls who are one way or other touching your life. You know that we are all part of one stream. You belong to a vaster current. And now you're again into a river, but consciously. And you're offering yourself consciously. And you find yourself being nourished by that journey and further shaped by the journey to the level where you will be surprised to discover that what you have become It is not something you can plan, but you give yourself and you discover that you are shaped beyond your imagination. You're doing things beyond your imagination, and you're finding yourself falling into roles that feels more and more really like this is my swadharma. It is so easy, so natural. I don't have to put any effort. There is no effort involved, and it is a flow. You're flowing in life consciously, like a river flowing, knowing that the ocean is there. And it's a space of surrender where that will that we built up consciously in the second stage is gladly surrendered to the greater wisdom with the emergence of that inner guidance, the presence that is guiding, the growing presence that is all around, which you notice increasingly. And that's where the third stage you recognize this is career by grace. And it's not in your hands. As Auroville Charter would say, to become a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. But in that journey, the second phase where you're building yourself up, a well-formed, well-forged individuality is required so that it can be offered, surrendered. We cannot jump from stage 1 to stage 3. Because we need to have formed into a well-formed ego individuality before the soul individuality can emerge. That slowly gets dissolved in the vaster embrace of a greater wisdom to which we hand over ourselves. And be surprised by where it is taking you. There, planning is still relevant because you will be given works. There you begin to use the mind only as a tool for execution, not a means to know. Mind is very good for planning things, structuring things, organizing things, giving form to things, getting things done. But it is not the source of knowing. That's where you also hand over your mind to a greater wisdom to pour its light into it so that its very functioning changes. Because that is what enables the flow state, the spontaneous flow of your being, your thought, your speech, your action, everything moving harmoniously together. You feel more and more like a river flowing. Without having to think and analyze. There's a vaster movement, a vaster current of which you're a part, you're conscious. You surrender to it. And there, new roles emerges. And many things that you held very dear in the past gets dropped off. And you gladly embrace new roles that are given to you. And you find new birth, a new being taking birth within you. You look back and wonder, who was that person a decade ago? And a clear indication is when you see that you're doing things that you never imagined. In the second stage, it is all that you have well thought out, planned, structured, organized, and executed. The third stage is also there is the planning work involved, but the vision, the greater impulsion comes from elsewhere. And your ability to let go of your limitations or holding on to the limitations and opening to possibilities that you never imagined, that opens up much more freely. And you begin to notice that if something is given to you, you will have the capacity to do it. And you discover the capacity, you discover people coming your way, situations emerging, a self-organizing movement that shapes up. There's great freedom in that, great joy in that. It is the second stage that is the most formative. That's where various parts of our being are brought out in a very visible manner to be confronted, to be purified, to be integrated, so that you can individualize. And that individualization requires the emerging psychic being to provide the center that holds it all together. So we move from this career by chance to career by choice to career by grace, and we see that our spiritual growth and the career unfoldment are one and the same. There is no separation. In fact, that whole separation between the career and one's personal life goes away. There's one continuum of your unfolding, your work in the world, increasingly meaningful, increasingly clear, increasingly aligned with who you are as an emerging soul with its freedom, its light. And that's a great space to be in. And it's important not to make the mistake of confusing the stage 1 for the stage 3. That's one fundamental error many people make, because I want to be spontaneous, flowing freely. In that name of free flow and spontaneity, you don't develop the will that is required to individualize. You remain in the unconscious drift, and you cannot navigate by conscious choice. It is necessary to form that will. Just like a great dancer spent years of training themselves to learn the grammar of dance, train the body, and it is only after years of tapasya then reach a stage where, at a point where they can improvise spontaneously on the stage, opening to a greater flow of inspired will, inspired force, inspired ananda. So it's critically important that rigorous training period where we are mastering the muscles before we surrender and offer. So with that, I would like to now open for your sharing, questions, observations.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very, very immersive. So participants, please, yes. Rajesh, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Manojji, for this wonderful journey that you painted before us, and it gave us clarity that how the various phases of human life pass through various stages, and ideally how to break that down into the way you have broken it. Excellent. I mean, it has given a lot of insights. I have just two questions. in this contest only, that what is the difference between surrendering and giving up or resigning to the fate? What's the difference between these two? And what should be our state of mind at the time of death to get that sound death? Because whatever we do or achieve, there is always some lingering vacuum that walks with us like a shadow. So what is this vacuum all about, and how to feel it once and for all?
Surrendering and giving up. Surrendering is a conscious choice to offer oneself to a greater will, knowing this is a divine choice, divine will, and I'm surrendering to the divine will, nothing else but that. Because we can easily surrender ourselves to fear, to doubt, to laziness, to anger. All kinds of forces are there. And we habitually surrender to all this. But the word surrender can be applied in a spiritual context only when you know you are surrendering to the divine will. Nothing else but that.
Okay.
And giving up is largely, we can say, you're unable to move forward in the way you wanted to go forward. And you're under the grip of lower nature. And it is pulling you downward. Whether it is sorrow, depression, hopelessness, whatever it is. And you're surrendering to that. And you say, I'm giving up. I'm just singing along with it. I don't have a will of my own. And if that happens in the transition between first stage to second stage, you fall back into the old rut. But there is a difference where when you're transitioning from the second stage to the third stage, there the divine will is often demanding surrender your individual will. That's the point where we must know to what I am surrendering the individual will is. I'm surrendering to a greater divine will, not to the movements of the lower nature.
Surrendering the ego, bad ego.
Yeah, surrendering the ego and the forces associated with it. We're not surrendering to any of that, but to the divine will alone.
Thank you.
Now, coming to the question of death. Before death, one thing to practice is, before you sleep, what you will remember. Simple practice, cultivating that remembrance of the divine, that providence, that grace, that opportunity that is given to us, being grateful to that. Holding that consistently, repeatedly, that will form as your inner core. So that will stay even when you fall sick, and in the last stages, it will be there with you. But preparation must start now. Otherwise, in that moment, we are drifting in all kinds of things. So we have to build it. And also, as you start building it, you will also become more conscious in dreams. So that even when you face challenges during dreams, you can call and invoke the help and protection. So prepare how to enter sleep and stay more conscious in dream, so that down the line, when death comes, we have a better chance to deal with it.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a few more questions. Yes, Nitin, please.
Thank you, Manojda, for your continued guidance and love. So if we have been graced to follow the career by grace and find ourselves in stage 3, having the joy and being a willing servitor. What are a few things to keep in mind so you can continue to be on that road, and also not get deflected, keep the focus alive and not have the forces of ego and other forces that don't serve you come in the way. And maybe if there is more progression beyond the career 3 stage that you can throw light on.
There is a baseline we all need to establish. Especially choice making at stage 3 demands the baseline of peace, a well-established peace, silence, stillness in the inner space. If this is not there, if the inner space is reactive, turbulent, there is very little chance to know the divine will. Whatsoever is getting communicated, whatsoever is entering gets dispersed. So preparation of that baseline is the condition. So in that, sincerity, faith, all that will be necessary, because you are entering into no man's land of mental silence, because you're not making decisions based on detailed analytical process. You're silencing the mind altogether and listening. At the same time, you do not want the emotional reactions or any other vital reactions to interfere, or the dullness of the body to block the transmission of light. So prepare the baseline. And stage beyond 3, I wouldn't suggest using that type of a framework. Just stay there. Stay there, deepen and learn from there. Because mind has this need to stretch. Drop that and just be in that space and discover that space and enjoy that space.
Thank you so much. We have one question in the chat box. Kavneet is asking, when one is in the phase of choice, how to quieten that voice which keeps asking you to go back to the comfort of the first stage, especially in the initial days or months of stage 2?
Yes, that's why it's a battle. We have the forces of social conventions and habitual conditionings, all the Bhishmacharyas and Dronacharyas and all the cousins and brothers standing against you, holding back. So in that space, while it is a battleground, having an inspiring purpose, like an anchor that is cast ahead, a north star to hold, clear understanding of what values you will never compromise, what you will fight for, what you will stand up for. That will become very, very important reference point to see that, yes, I may fall back, but I will come back. And also to develop the inner picture that we are taking baby steps. And a little baby learned to walk by falling hundreds and hundreds of times. In the process, the baby is building the muscle. So the same thing is applicable to us, and not to judge, especially when the romantic notions about what my capacities are and I'm going to build my path, all that take a thrash when it hits with life. And at that time, not to fall into self-criticism too heavily, and not to take the internal critique too seriously, and to have a good support system, have good mentors to hold you through that stage. and have a good North Star to hold on to, so that one can get up and start again and again and again and again, because we are building a muscle.
Thank you. Jitendra has raised his hand. I think that would be the last question, or maybe we can take a few more. Yes, Jitendra.
Yes, I would like to know how does one exactly know at which stage one is, whether it is first, second, or third stage?
It is not so strictly divided. In a way, all of them exist all the time. We can find even when you're operating at stage 3, suddenly your old stage 1 habits and formations show up and engulf you for a while. So one has to be just vigilant all the time to see, am I running on autopilot or becoming more conscious? That's the first discernment. Shifting from being autopilot to conscious. So autopilot is the stage 1, and it can happen anytime, anywhere, because the past habits are always there running as a backdrop and grips. So then noticing the second stage operations, where you're conscious and you see what is your discernment faculty, discerning faculty. Is it the intelligent will and analysis and operating from ego, or are you able to tune into a deeper inner guidance, the third nudge that is coming? So all three, in a way, are simultaneously existing. But this linear transition I explained is to help you understand, because we tend to be at one or other stage in general. And even within that stage, all three you will find.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more question in the chat box. Sudhir is asking, I was wondering, how will we experience flow if we identify our swabhava and swadharma? Let's say we have resources on our disposal, but we don't have skills. Then there will be a struggle, isn't it? Let's say an entrepreneur facing struggle.
Yes, the emergence of Swabhava and Swadharma is a slow process that emerges with individualization, and it does nothing much to do with the resources that you have. In fact, the more you are aligned with the inner divine presence and its guidance and its individualized expression through you, whatever resources are given will flow towards you. And that's where it becomes an increasingly a flow state. Whereas in the second stage, when there is the individual will that is required in the early stage, that's where we experience the effort, the struggle, and it is a necessary phase. And the transition from that effort of the individualizing ego and surrendering, there is a gradual process of elimination. It won't happen in a rapid manner. There is a progressive surrendering of the effort required, because initially our state of being is scattered, dispersing all the time. And we are learning to concentrate and gather all our energies, become individualized, concentrated will and capacity to move forward. As that forms more and more, then we are tuning into a greater wave, that is the career wave, upon which we are surrendering to, and that will carry, that is where the flow happens. It's like you are stepping into an aircraft and you're not the pilot. You have just chosen this is the destination where it is going, and I just walk in and it will carry you forward. But preceding that stage is where we are building, where there is effort. Even when you are living more and more from the stage of flow, where you're integrated, one can still always fall back, because as the transformation deepens, the deeper layers will show up. Not only your personal deeper layers, but also the collective unconscious will show up, depending upon the kind of roles that the divine assigns to you, based on the capacity of each instrument. This is a work for you. Sometimes it's a battle in a collective space. And that can feel like an endless battle with full of effort. But you know that it's a work that is given to you. And it's not your individual responsibility. There's a greater will, there's a greater wisdom, there's a greater grace that is taking you through. Even if you're not able to see where it is leading you, you are glad to go with it without any internal confusion, fragmentation, conflict. Outwardly, it might still look like a major battle in which you're involved, but inwardly, you can be quiet, solid, calm.
Thank you so much. I would now request Dr. Bijlani to share his remarks and comments, please.
Thank you, Manoj, for making a very difficult topic so simple, and something that concerns the youth so immensely, uh, presenting it in a way that is reasonable, systematic, and easy to grasp. At the same time, giving them that patience which would not uh, sort of make them in a great hurry to be at stage 3, because some of them are these days. And my own career fits in perfectly in this. My doing medicine was stage 1. The way you did engineering, I did medicine. But then while doing that, I realized that I was not cut out for being a clinician. So I made a conscious choice, which was rather unconventional, to choose physiology. Then physiology was essentially dealing with animal research. I made a conscious choice to do human research. And then came in yoga. And from there was an extension to stage 3, where for which stage 2 had prepared me. So, uh, but at the same time, I felt that this sort of a fortunate sort of a movement in which you are preparing at one stage for the next one, and therefore it's a seamless and smooth extension, which fits in very well with the mother's idea also of a temporary occupation and a final calling. One may consider stage 1 and stage 2 to be the temporary occupations, and stage 3 to be the final calling of the person. But then this progression from one stage to the other is not necessarily a natural process. I think the mother has also emphasized that this is more likely to happen, or probably, in fact, this will happen only if the initial stages, particularly I think stage 2, is handled in the spirit of karma yoga. That is, one is totally dedicated and sincere in doing the job, even if one knows that it is a temporary occupation, then only there are chances that the person will also discover the final calling, which will be stage 3. Another thing that occurred to me was that it may depend partly on the level of consciousness with which the person has arrived on this planet as a result of the homework done in previous lives. Because there seem to be plenty of examples who get stuck at stage 1. I've known engineers who, if they get a government job at the age of 30, say that, well, now for the next 30 years, I know that I can go on having this job. It will be not difficult to retain it. I'll retire with at least in this position with this much salary and this much pension, and I'll have this much savings. And by then, I would have built a house and my children will be well settled. And very often, if they are lucky, all these things do happen, and they feel, well, I've worked enough. Now I've earned leisure after retirement, which I can spend on just watching the TV and playing cards. I've known people like that. So it depends that they arrived at this planet with sort of at a level where they were meant to spend their life basically at the physical vital level. So that type of people also do exist. And also, there may be some stray examples where something has triggered and the person has straight away moved from stage 1 to stage 3. And one example that occurred to me was these are exceptions, of course. I mean, the typical pattern ideally should be what you have outlined. And uh, that sort of would be smooth as well as in sort of keeping with the ultimate purpose of life, which is essentially spiritual growth. So the person can do it in the most natural and spontaneous way by following that sort of a sequence. But then, you might have heard of a person called Krishnan who lives in Madurai, and he had done a course in hotel management, joined a hotel, and then landed a lucrative job in Switzerland in a five-star hotel. But before leaving the country, before he could go and join that job in Switzerland, he went to the temple, probably Meenakshi temple in Madurai, and found lots of beggars outside that temple. And he was so moved that he thought, why should I go and feed these rich people in a five-star hotel in Switzerland? Why not feed these people? He dropped the idea of going to Switzerland and instead set up an NGO which started feeding the hungry and homeless people in Madurai, and gradually his work expanded and he started building shelters for the homeless. So one might say that he straight away jumped from stage 1 to stage 3. And then, there could be people who straight away go to stage 3. These may be the people, about whom Sri Krishna talks in the 6th chapter of the Gita, that a person who has not been able to complete the journey of yoga in one life, and most of us are unable to do so, is not really wasting the effort. He'll arrive in the next life and be born in either a prosperous family or in a family of yogis. And then this person will have inbuilt natural tendencies which will show up pretty early in life and put him on the path of yoga. So this person, one might say, that is straight away going to stage 3. So exceptions can perhaps be always there. So these are some of the thoughts that crossed my mind. And partly I brought them out because I thought that might bring out something more from you, because you are such a deep thinker and have given so much thought to this subject. So maybe this will provoke you to come up with some more ideas, and we'll be able to get benefit more from your wisdom.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really enriching to have you here, and it is grace that brought me to this talk today. So I would like to share with everybody that the recording of this particular talk, as well as all our talks on spirituality, yoga, education, wellness, psychology, will be found on the Yes Spirituality YouTube channel. Please subscribe and follow. And we thank sir once again. We thank our participants for sharing their questions and being with us. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, Bishlani sir. And let's all close with a moment of silence.